All right, we're recording, and I want to welcome everybody again to the Dream Alliance Tuesday night, your favorite night of the week. Why? Because you love me and you love the Dream Alliance. And we've been learning lots of stuff over the last couple of weeks, really important stuff, and tonight will be no exception. In fact, I'm pretty much thinking that tonight might be one of the more important webinars or one of the classes that we've ever done here because we've talked about all these different things about putting together the perfect product and matching it a niche product and matching it with a perfectly niche target audience. And then I showed you last week where to find those people. But that's really kind of the end of the rail there. I mean, because after that, after you started contacting everybody, you just can't blow that opportunity, excuse me, of making that person get into your funnel and being able to contact them and give them what we call takeaway items and everything. This is the important part. This is the part where the real conversion takes place. And it's a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort to go out there and meet these kinds of people out there, whether it's at a meetup group or you're paying for traffic or buying ads. I mean, at this point, this is going to be the critical juncture here, and we're the landing page. And often, we just send people to the home page or we hand out business cards or brochures or something like that. And I'll make a disclaimer a little bit here in just a minute, but mainly if you're going to do anything online, you have to have a landing page because you want to match the specific message that you've been promoting to these people with a specific list and a segregated list and something that captures them into a funnel that's just as tightly niched as the product and service and target market that you've been working so hard on. Okay. So what you don't want to do is create a very narrow niche, highly content focused product or service to a particular individual that could definitely benefit from that, just to send them somewhere where they could become lost, confused about your message. So we always want to keep that niche going as far as we can. And that includes the final step here, which is the landing page. So moving along, I am fresh from a wilderness camping trip, and I wish that would quit doing that. Okay, great. Fresh from a wilderness camping trip over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I was out in the middle of the New Hampshire White Mountain National Forest, and I hiked about 10 miles through trails that I couldn't believe existed. Nothing like that in North Carolina, for sure. And also spent about 14, 15 plus hours in deep creekside meditation, which I do very often. Well, not as often as I should since I've been on the road, but definitely something that I try to get in as often as possible. And I call it deconstructed visualization, and it's really powerful stuff. And I use it all the time. And actually, I'm in a pretty damn good mood for it, and I'm glad I did it. So last week we talked about where to find your target niche. And I had kind of used Richard as an example there, but he didn't show up for class, but that's fine. And he saw the recording, but we used him as an example. There was plenty of places to find your target niche. But again, let me reiterate here. The problem is you just can't send them to a website homepage or just hand out business cards and whatnot. You have to get them into a very specific direct message funnel. And it's different than your normal opt-in where you have a general amount of traffic coming in and you have kind of like a wide open opt-in that kind of attracts just anybody. We're talking about niche here. So in that regard, you have to have a dedicated opt-in. And this is what we're talking about here. And that's far different than these sidebar opt-ins and whatnot that you're usually used to having on your website. This is something that it doesn't have to be a hidden page, but it's generally a page that's hidden. It's not part of your navigation, but it can be. All that really doesn't matter. What matters is that the language and the benefits on that one particular opt-in is extremely narrow and focused to match your target service or your niche service and product to that very specific targeted group. When we talk about niche, and everybody talks about a niche, all the gurus talk about, hey, you got to have a niche, but they don't explain exactly the detail of what a niche involves and why it's so important. It's important because you're matching. This is what I call the elegant product. The elegant product is one that's so relevant, so apropos to the person that you're pitching it to, that the conversions are high. They're 50, 75% because these people go, that's exactly what I've been looking for. And it's not your general stuff and fluff that you put out there, just trying to wide brush and get as many people into your camp as possible. This is something very specific. So the language needs to reflect that. And that's basically what I'm going to talk about here. I'm not going to really go into too many details about how to build the landing page. I'm going to give you ideas how to do it. It's actually quite simple. We're talking about the language and the benefits and how you separate that from fluff, because the copy is the killer here. It's the conversion. It's the point. It's the place that they nod their head and go, this is what I've been looking for. And generally our opt-ins aren't like that. They're very general, or they're kind of a mystery, like I'm not really sure what it means or what I'm going to get, and some of that is okay. But we're talking about very niche circumstances here. So this is critically important. And this is the kind of the last rail of this. And it's the most important part. And believe it or not, regardless of how many people you talk to and about your niche and how specific and beautiful you've created this service or product, without this landing page or without some way to capture them into a very specific funnel, the marketing will fail. I guarantee you. This is the breaking point a lot of people don't understand. This is your elegant, again, product and service. So don't waste these money opportunities, money costing opportunities. They could be money making, but generally at first they're money costing. Don't miss this opportunity to match up the perfect prospect to your perfect service by leaving the ball in their court. You just don't let them go wherever. You have to drive them to it. And remember, under most circumstances, especially online, they're not just going to call. They rarely fill out a contact form of any sort. And you just can't send them to a homepage where they're on their own trying to find their way around. You have to collect specific information that kicks off a set of specific marketing messages to make the conversion. So that's a big point we're going to go over tonight. So the answer to that is what I call a dedicated landing page. You guys know what they are, but very few of us actually have them. And to be honest with you, this is all I do. I mean, my website doesn't do anything. I mean, I have a website, colinmartinconsulting.com, but I don't do anything with it. I rarely even get on it and even make changes or add any kind of material to it. It's just something so people can see what I do. I might have some examples of copy, and it's kind of like a business card, but just as a business card in real life, you hand it to somebody and they throw it in the garbage. A website can basically be a business card as well if it's just too broad or you're leaving the conversions up to them. Okay, you don't want to do that. So what we want to do is a dedicated page. Now I have one website that I rarely do anything with. I never even look at it. I haven't even been there in probably 6 or 8 months to even look at it. But I have hundreds, literally hundreds over all these years of dedicated opt-ins for specific target markets. And I've showed you that during the one class we had about the one-page empire, which basically had a lot to do with opt-ins and things like that, and sales letters and invites and this kind of stuff. The one-page empire is pretty big. But in this regard, it's something that you want to create and really drive people to, especially online. Now, the disclaimer. The disclaimer is that if you are going out and meeting people at meetups and conventions and things like that, and you collect their business card and you get their phone number, then the ball is still in your court. You're the one that's going to have to call them, sometimes numerous times, but that's a very high converting thing to do. A lot of us don't do that. We don't really go out and meet people. The online part is that if you're driving people to a website or putting out any kind of online, looking for people online, this is what we're talking about, the landing page. So home pages are always too confusing, so just forget that. Don't make them look around for information. You got to give it to them directly. So your website, believe it or not, take a look at it sometimes. It has too much irrelevant content that is specific to the niche. Sometimes, and we've talked about this in the last class when we're creating our niche product, sometimes we have a very general brand that can appeal to a wider group of people, but we're creating at different times a very specific service or product that's very, very narrow and very, very deep, high content and niche. And the idea about that is that you're going to create these things from time to time. So your niche, your very narrow niche might not be something that you're constantly, that you have all the time. It's something that you might create numerous ones at different times, or you might run one for a year and create a different one. So before I move on to the next page, I just want to make sure that if I happen to disappear or anything, I'm at a Starbucks again, and I'm still in New Hampshire, but I'm moving down to Massachusetts tomorrow. Not moving, but I'm traveling back down there. So if it cuts out or anything like that, just make sure that I want to make sure that you don't get angry if we lose connection or something. And if we do, I'll always run this again on another night, like tomorrow or something like that. So don't pull me off the stage with one of those giant hooks like in a Bugs Bunny cartoon or anything like that. Yeah, I'm still on the road, obviously, so there could be issues from time to time, but I think I got a decent connection. But just letting you know, if we anything ever catastrophic happens to our class here and the connection, I'll make it up to everybody by repeating it again and give you an extra surprise. So just wanted to put that little disclaimer out there before I moved on to the next page here. So if you don't know what a dedicated landing page looks like, kind of looks like one of this. And this is I don't remember her name now. Oh, Marie Florio. There we go. Yeah, and I remember. And this is just your basic squeeze page. Now, we're not going to get into the details of how to build the squeeze page or how to where's everything got to go and how it's got to look and things like that. We're really focusing on the psychological benefits and copy and things like that that make people have to sign in. This is what we're talking about, psychological conversion. So your squeeze page doesn't have to be super fancy. You don't have to pay for one. You can get someone to make one if you want, but really, you can just create something very simple. As long as you have the copy and the benefits and the features that I'm going to show you tonight, you don't need to worry about whether it's something super fancy or some kind of killer template. Now, this is kind of cool, and they all look different, and there isn't right or wrongs about the way they look. The right or wrong is about whether it's speaking to your niche, getting that psychological conversion. So take a look at this. This is Marie Florio. She's got a video, which is cool, and she's giving away videos, and that's basically it. So she's talking about, making millions with internet marketing, kind of an overdone product there, but I just wanted to show you what a dedicated opt-in. There's really nothing here. This is it. Okay, there's some Facebook things down there, and it's funny, she puts that big green button thing or that arrow there, kind of covers all the important stuff up, kind of pointing to her, all her credibility builders down there where she's been in the paper and whatnot. But, this is basically it. You've seen them a million times, but this is the structure that I'm actually talking about in this class. Wait a minute, what happened here? Here's another one, and I like this one better, and we'll kind of go over the elements of this. Look at this one. This is very cool. This is a woman who's teaching you how to be a media expert. So I love the headline, discover what it takes to look like a media expert, because she knows damn well that you're not one. But looking like one is how you get invited back to all these different things. So this is what we call a very specific niche. She could teach all sorts of stuff, but her main niche is focusing on people who want to be on television and getting them to, I guess, dress properly, speak properly, train on sound bites, all the important things. But look at the different elements. It's got share buttons. It's got big arrows. This is just something where you watch a video. The video, it isn't the freebie. Okay. The video is something that explains what you're going to get and why it's important. And that video is very important. And we're not making enough videos out there. The reason that the video is so important is because it really takes the message that you're trying to explain here to people, and you're putting a voice and a face and a passion to it. So the video is critical. Without one, you're just kind of relying on the written copy, and a lot of people don't read that. Okay, so you want to be careful of that. So just have a 3 or 4 minute video here people can watch. And what she is trying to do here is telling you all the free things you're going to get. She might show an example of what the training is about, which kind of looks like here. It kind of looks like an example of what training you'll see. It could be a snippet of the video series that you're going to get when you sign in. So you're getting 6 free training videos. All you got to do is put in your name and email, and there you go. Richard says she should say sound like a media expert instead of look like a media expert. I would agree with that, man. That's actually pretty good. Anybody can dress up, but if you don't understand the nature of sound bites, yeah, that's important. So, maybe all that's in there. You don't know the importance of that. What you're going to get should be in these bullet points. That's why we're going to focus on the copy here tonight, and exactly what we're talking about in terms of people saying, yes, I have to have that. So you see the elements. Basically, you got the header, and you got a headline, and you got a video, and you got some share buttons, and you got some bullet points. She explains exactly what you're going to get for the most part. And then you got an opt-in box. This is it. This is a squeeze page. And why do they call it the squeeze page really quick? The squeeze page is that you're squeezing an email address out of somebody in exchange for further training that you just teased them into believing that they have to have. So what you've done is you that's why the video is kind of important, is because the video teases them into saying, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to continue this kind of information. And all you have to do is put your email name in there. In the video, you can actually say that kind of stuff. And there's not a specific script for it, but there's a kind of a general outline that kind of follows what I'm going to show you tonight. But it tells them, put your name in there, and you'll get video 1, video 2. It'll take you through all the steps that you need to do. And also you want to talk about the freebie. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It doesn't have to be any certain file. There's no right and wrong in terms of what you're giving away. But the thing is that it needs to be what we call results in advance. And that means that you're giving away something that isn't just fluff on the other side, because that really upsets people. They're really hoping to learn something. If they can learn something, again, the results in advance model is if they can learn something before they buy and try it out and it actually works for them, then that's when they'll actually hire you. If you fluff around and tease them with stuff on the other side that really doesn't have any kind of content that can really help them, they'll just move on. So the freebie, again, doesn't have to be any particular kind of file, but always remember results in advance. Richard also says, notice she asks for first and last name. I think she needs your consulting. Yeah, exactly right. Personally, and I'll show you this here in just a minute, I don't ask for the first or last name. I don't need the first name anymore. It's cheesy to have that little fill. Hey, Colin, what you been doing? I don't care about that. I know it's just, automated. I don't need the first name. In fact, anytime you ask for anything beyond the email, it can actually lower the conversion, like 30%. So 3 out of 10 people will actually not sign up to an opt-in form if you're asking their name. Some things are just really personal to people. Don't ask me. I'm not the one who did it, but we've tested that kind of thing. So I'm giving you test results. I never really cared. I put my name in there and I didn't really think twice about it. But evidently there's a lot of other people that bothers them. Richard also says, is the idea to attract people who think they can do it on their own and then make them realize that it's too difficult to do? No, you don't make them realize it's too difficult to do. You actually give them every opportunity to succeed. You just know full well that they really don't want to move forward without a coach or a mentor. Because, well, take her, for example. If you're going to be on TV, why do you want to blow your first chance? If you get on there and you don't know what you're doing and you babble on and you mumble and you haven't prepared yourself for a television interview, you think that producer's not going to tell every other producer in town? Some of this stuff people just don't want to mess up. Okay. And how your freebie tells them, it outlines the difficulties, but you're always saying and reiterating that with just proper guidance, it's actually very easy. So that's one of the elements I'll discuss here tonight. So it's a good question, Richard. So I just wanted to show you what a squeeze page looks like, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. So why do you have a dedicated page? Well, the first thing is it creates a separate list of prospects. You don't want super niche people that you spend a lot of time targeting and they got all excited and opt in to get really good information that really speaks to them, all mixed up into your main list. Because how are you supposed to send them specific marketing materials? Because if you have your dedicated opt-in, it's a completely different campaign in your email program than your main opt-in. You can just leave your main opt-in up. There's nothing wrong with that. But specific niches have to kick off their own marketing messages. So whenever you create a new campaign, a new opt-in in an email program, Aweber, GetResponse, One Shopping Cart, they all the same. Basically in terms of creating a dedicated campaign, it's going to kick off autoresponders with laser targeted information. That is completely relevant to that person and that person alone. It has nothing to do with the main traffic coming to your website for a number of different reasons. Okay, so this is why we want the dedicated page. Again, if you have a campaign in your email and you have a segregated list just for that niche, you can just send newsletters just to those people or invite them. And this is the main thing. You want to invite them to teleclasses and webinars, because a lot of people aren't just going to buy from an opt-in, or an autoresponder. Basically, those are educational purposes. Once they've opted in, they get the marketing messages. They get the newsletters that you send out every once in a while, and you got the autoresponders that go out automatically. And when they read that, they go, this person really knows me. They understand what I'm saying. And now I'm waiting for that opportunity to be corralled into some kind of Q&A or a teleclass or a training webinar on this. And as soon as they all come together, that's when you pitch the product, your main product. And at that point, the niche is so hot and so narrowly funneled that you can charge just about anything in the world that you want, and they'll buy it, because basically you've spent all that time to this point creating those niche products and services, targeting a specific person, and then pitching an exact solution to their problem. We went over all this in the last couple of classes about a niche. This is why the niche is important. But you can't invite people to a webinar if you don't know who they are, if they don't have their own separate list and campaign in the email. So you always use the dedicated opt-in as a segregated list builder to keep those people out of what we call the general population. Okay. And also, I've said it a million times, but I'll say it again. Unless you live in Canada, you need to turn the double opt-ins off. Okay, I think most of us do that here because I've railed on everybody for so long about it. But generally, some of us still do it. And every new client I get, I first thing I do is opt in and see what happens. And I get some confirmation email. It's stuck in my junk folder. And all that is just going to kill your conversions. That's what you don't want to do. You need to deliver that information that you promised immediately. They hit the submit button, or, the join now or whatever, the button when they sign up and they opt in, they hit that button. They're instantly taken to a thank you page where they have the files within 2 seconds. Anything beyond that is going to kill the conversion. So stop with the double opt-ins, and nobody wants that. They get nothing but lost anyway. So it's kind of a pain in the butt. So let's talk about the layout of, and this is important, the layout of the squeeze page. You just can't throw whatever up just because you like it. There's very specific things that you got to have. And obviously you saw the examples. They're actually quite simple. There's not a whole lot to it. It doesn't okay, this is a big thing. It doesn't scroll on and on and on, with tons and tons of copy to where the opt-in form is 3 screens down of scrolling. You actually want to see the opt-in form, the form itself, on the page above the fold before you even. There's usually no scrolling whatsoever involved in a squeeze page. So if you have to scroll to see anything, you've said too much, and it's time to take out the axe and start chopping away the stuff. So simple layout, no distractions, no other links to anything. Share buttons are fine, but you don't need navigation, and you don't need, 3 other choices and, hey, get my free ebook while you're here. Don't do things like that. It'll kill the opt-in conversion. Of course, someone will download and, grab an ebook without opting in. They'll do anything else besides opt in. So if the choice is only opt in or leave, then you've done your job, because if the niche really speaks to them, they will opt in. Why would they not? They've spent all that time creating the perfect product for them, and all that you simply asking for an email is fine. So very little copy. And basically when you see it really quick, just like Richard saw that squeeze page and interpreted quite a few things out of it, it should be done in just a few seconds. You don't want to spend a lot of time reading and reading. You want to hit the pain points. You want to put the headline on there. You want to make sure that you're driving the nail home and telling them exactly what they're going to get. So no generalities, no beating around the bush, no teasing, no fluff. Stick with specific niche info. Hey, I know why you're here. I know how to fix it. And here's what you're going to get. Just opt in. That's it, basically. It sounds simpleton, but it's not. It's actually quite, again, elegant in its simplicity. So there's a magic dedicated opt-in layout template that I wasn't the first to devise, but I've added to it. So it starts with the headline, and you saw that in the one about the be an expert on TV one. And I'll show you some examples of really killer headlines, and that's probably 75% of what they're going to see first, and is going to convince them that this is what they need. The other 25% is made up of watching the video and glancing for about 3 to 7 seconds of the bullet points. If you have much more than that, they're just you're wasting time. The headline, just like on a sales letter, is everything. That's going to drive the nail home. So you also want to have a short video like we showed there. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be professional. It can just be you at a webcam. Just, keep it simple. But the video is very important because meeting you is part of the high conversion here. Then you do want some share buttons, and share buttons aren't going to take them away from the page. Okay. And typically people don't share anyway after they've opted in. Well, it's too late at that point, but the share buttons are designed to open up in a small, what we call an iframe window. So if you click share on Twitter, it doesn't take you from the page. It just opens up a really tiny pop-up kind of window where it's automated, it's already filled in. Hey, you can write whatever you want in it, or it's already filled in, and people just hit click, and then it disappears, and they've shared it on Twitter to 10,000 of their friends, which is something that helps spread the news. And they're back on the same page again, ready to opt in. So those are important, and I don't see those very often on squeeze pages, but they're very important. So you also have the love pain formula, and I'll show you that, and that's about the headlines. And also you can throw those in for added effect in the bullet points. They just need to be only a few bullet points, okay? Not a whole lot of reading here. And of course the bullets need to be benefit, and I'll explain exactly what I mean by a benefit, and magnets, as opposed to your typical fluff, okay? You also really want to explain what they're going to get. Is it a 6-video series? Is it a PDF? Is it a manifesto? Is it an ebook? Actually you want to keep it short. You don't want to give away anything too long. If you send out 15 pages, they're not going to read it. So if you're going to send out some kind of ebook, manifesto, or PDF, it shouldn't be longer than about 4 pages. And all it does is just reiterate, drives the nail home. And they can use that. It can offer, 3 tips, all sorts of things like that. All those things tell the person that I'm going to learn something that I can really use if I get this freebie. And the value in the freebie, again, is in the results that they're going to get by using it, and whatever tips you're giving them in there. That solidifies you as an expert and them wanting to finally work with you. Okay, so explain what they're going to get, and don't surprise people. Okay, I've seen so many opt-ins that don't tell you exactly what you're getting. And if it's an MP3 series, explain it. Tell them how long it is. There's value in telling them how long it is and how much time they need to invest, but don't take that as it needs to be a 3-hour MP3, because no one's going to listen to it. In fact, that'll turn people off. The value is that I'm going to give you all sorts of great content that you can use right now to make a change or solve this problem in a 4-minute audio. And people will go, I can invest 4 minutes of my time to learn something today. So value isn't in the size, okay? It's in the brevity of the content and what they're going to learn. So keep that in mind. Keep everything very short, okay? You also want to put a branding statement. And branding statement's just, that fancy thing. That's where you can put a little bit of fluff in there, but keep it really short. And also, then you have your opt-in form, and that can be on the side, bottom, doesn't really matter where it is. It really doesn't matter. I've had high conversions regardless of where the opt-in form is placed. It just really depends on what kind of template you're using. And heck, you can put a PS on there. Tom always used to put a PS. A PS kind of reiterates driving another nail into the coffin there. PS, you're going to learn something that will change your life. Act now. Just something simple like that. You know, what we call wraparound. So you got the headline at the top, PS comes to be like a mini headline. So let's take a look. And this is what everyone loves to hear. This is why everyone's here. And it's the love conflict formula. And I also want to say that I did this live. I mentioned that on Facebook. This is actually a live presentation that I've done in numerous places that people paid a lot of money for. And this whole headline here, this little magic formula I use, is very critical in the headline. And we'll see if you can even write one yourself tonight if you feel like it. But the love conflict formula, you got to have two elements of a headline. Don't write a headline that says, hey, you're about to get the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you're lucky to meet me, or something. Just a headline needs to show some kind of positive and then a pain point, all in the same sentence. So look what I did here. I color-coded these. So let's look at the first headline. The so-called healthy foods you're eating could actually be killing you. Okay, what that does is it's like a crescendo. So love gets people to wake up and go, hey, that's me. And then the conflict goes, oh, shit. I'm going to die, or I'm going to lose money, or I'm going to become diabetic, or my kid's going to go on drugs. What am I doing wrong? And whenever you put the conflict out there, they realize that they need an answer and a solution to that conflict before they crash. The freebie and the opt-in is the solution. Always keep that in mind. Your freebie is always the answer to the conflict that you've instilled in the headline. Okay? And it doesn't matter whether the love or conflict comes beginning of the sentence or the end. You can mix them around, but it wakes people up. It brings down resistance. Because anytime you talk about you're about to get the greatest things in sliced bread, people instantly put up a wall of resistance. They've been sold that bill of goods so many times. You really have to hit the pain point. Here's another one. Burned out? That's a pain point. I'm burned out. Tired of chasing that big client? Hell yeah, I'm tired of chasing big clients. So was I, but now I no longer have to. That's the love part. And you're like, well, what does she know that I don't? I mean, I am tired. This makes it look like somebody has learned something that I wish I knew. It makes life easier for all of us. This is one from Michelle with her group coaching. And right there, she's telling you that regular coaching is tiresome, burned out, chasing clients. And then when the big client disappears or runs out of money, then you're broke. And a group coaching is a solution, but you don't know that yet. So the whole idea is she's going to offer like a 2 or 3 page manifesto about how great group coaching is. By the time you read that, you're like, I don't need clients anymore. Okay, next one. Your poor grasp of the English language will keep you from getting promoted at work. That's kind of a Richard-inspired headline right there. But when you talk about learning languages or English or something like that, you always want to reiterate that they don't know, or they're missing out, or they're lacking something. And then you have to put the love in there. What will happen to me if I do increase my language skills? Will I get a better job? Will I get promoted? And things like that. So Richard says, I wouldn't use that one. It's too negative. Richard. He's always the party pooper here, man. It might be, obviously you can write what you want, but in my humble opinion, there's nothing too negative. And there really isn't. It's not a turnoff. That's exactly the truth. There's nothing wrong with that. So, I mean, I'm just a consultant. What do I know? You know what I mean? But I like expressing the pain point. And also, another thing out there, when it comes to writing copy like this, try not to judge it from what you would read. It's just like music. Like if you like a particular record, not everyone in the world likes that record. Or if you hate a particular band, a lot of other people like them. So your personal preference about what would affect you has little to do with what it will do to your target market. So you always want to err on the side of making them uncomfortable, because the comfort is in learning to solve the problem. Okay. And learning to solve the problem has everything to do with opting in and getting your information and them hiring you to take that 100% down the line. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with me or not. That's all fine. But pain points become very important, and a lot of us are uncomfortable. And I've spent a lot of time with clients trying to break through that kind of shyness or feeling a little reserved about that. But sometimes it really works. And if you're serious about it, then you got to think about it. All right, the bottom one, this is from Joyce, our esteemed Dream Alliance member. She's here tonight. She wrote one I really love. And she wasn't really all about the pain points in her original business. It was a little on the woo-woo, fluffy kind of side, and she's really thinking about it now. And she wrote this to me, and I have to congratulate her. Your dream of changing your career and starting a new business. Oh, you dream of changing your career and starting a new business, but you're terrified you will not succeed. There's the love and conflict. This really works. It works every time it's tried. That's an excellent one. Congratulations, Joyce. And that works really well. So this is what I'm talking about. Whenever someone is thinking about changing a career, starting a business, there are so many things that terrify them. Do I have enough money? Am I good enough to even do this? Do I have what it takes? Do I have the confidence? Do I have the mindset? Do I have the planning? Do I have the tools? Do I have the templates? Do I have the mentor, the teacher? All this stuff is what Joyce possesses that she can charge money for. So a particular target market will have the money to invest in starting a business or changing a career, but they can't be successful if they have doubts. And just that right there covers every doubt and everything that you can possibly imagine, because being terrified is critically important. So the next is the video and share buttons and the benefits bullets. Again, you can look down there and you see there's a video. Well done. The benefit bullets, which aren't super benefit ridden. I'll give you a little bit better benefits. Actually, you can use the love conflict formula in the benefits of your bullet points too, in little mini versions of the headline. So this woman, even though the squeeze page looks great, really didn't, it's not that effective, because I don't see any kind of pain points, conflict, or anything like you're going to look like a fool or ruin, your first impression on TV will carry you out for the rest of your career, so don't make it crash or something like that. She says, discover what it takes to look like a media expert. Whoop-de-doo. That doesn't really do much for me, but there's your headline. Anyway, the elements are nice, and she looks like she's, spent a lot of time on that. So this little basic structure here is kind of cool, but don't want to forget any of these things. And don't write a bunch of copy. The bullet points are just fine. You want people to digest this in just a few seconds, okay? So let's talk about what benefits are when we're talking about the bullet points or anything else that you're writing. These are the benefits that you have to touch on. And think about some of these. You don't have to use them all, but this should give you an idea. What are your prospects' deepest desires? What is it that they're trying to accomplish? Who do they want to be? Okay. What I mean by that is that we all kind of visualize ourselves being a certain kind of person, or maybe even being somebody that we know, or wanting to be like somebody, more accomplished, more competent, whatever. We all harbor those ideas. You want to get into the mind of your prospect, and you want them to think, she knows what I'm thinking about. She is inside my head. How does she do that? Well, think about it for yourself. Who would you like to be? So think about your target market. What kind of person would they want to be? So in Joyce's case, so if you look at people who want to change a career or start a business, we're talking about a successful business owner that keeps their own hours, that doesn't have a boss, it doesn't have to answer to anybody. That's a certain kind of person that they think they want to be. So identify that. Call them out on that. Let them know that you know what they're thinking. How much money can they make? That's always good. How easy will it be to accomplish? This is what we were talking about with Richard brought up. You don't want to make them seem like it's too difficult. You want to tell them how easy it's actually going to be, because nobody really wants to have to learn or work or go back to school or spend a lot of time studying or anything else that's going to take them away from their family time. If they can accomplish all this in a very minimal amount of time, then that's a huge selling factor. Keep that in mind. Always use the words easy and discover and secrets and all that kind of stuff. How did it change your life? Another thing, we got to tell that personal story, just a snippet, a bullet point, really quickly, how it changed your life, because people want to look up to you and see, well, I don't want to be the first one who's ever tried it. So whether it changed your life or somebody else's, that is a powerful point that you want to put in your bullet point or any kind of copy. Also, how did it help others before that person got there? Again, no one wants to be the guinea pig for your particular niche product. They want to know that it actually worked and changed someone else's life. No one ever raises their hand. No one ever wants to go first. We've done that experiment a million times. So you want to use copy, and this is important, that makes them visualize the benefits coming true. Always write your bullet points. And it's hard to write very short bullet points with this in mind, but you can do it. Sometimes you want to chop away the excess words and it becomes even more powerful. But they need to see it happening in their head. They're going, yes, I can see me becoming a business owner. I believe that she's got the tools to help me move forward with this. These kinds of things you want to put out there. See yourself becoming this person. Tell them that. See yourself becoming, changing, losing weight, getting off of drugs. Plant those suggestions in their head. Because if you can do all of this, and this is important, if you can touch all these different internal factors that are inside the head of your prospect, then you don't have to resort to the same old ad stuff, such as discussing cheap prices, discounting, or even putting down your competition. Now, I've done all that. Okay. I've written plenty of copy and plenty of ads, and I've talked about, I've got the cheapest prices and I'm offering deep discounts and I'm offering rewards, and, everybody else is a moron and I only have the right stuff. I've tried it all. But really, when you plant these suggestions in your prospect's head, it lowers resistance. The thing about talking about prices, discounts, and competition is that it elevates the wall of resistance, and it takes a while to have to break that back down. And there's no time to put up resistance-laden copy because they're on an opt-in page. They're on a squeeze page. They're not going to sit there for 10 minutes perusing and deciphering this stuff. They need to be extremely comfortable in the shortest amount of time, period, with this stuff. That's the goal of your copy. I'll always help you with some of this stuff if you need it. So don't worry about that. So anyway, we were working on a kind of a opt-in. It was not an squeeze page, so to speak, but this is actually what we call an advertorial. It's kind of like a magazine ad. It's like a 2-page kind of thing on a page that seems like it's a news flash, but it's really just a manifesto that gets them to opt in at the end. It's kind of an interesting take on a squeeze page. Anyway, we were talking about copy. I had a client call me up and she said, well, I want to create this piece of copy, for a big new project that I'm developing. And I said, well, don't write a bunch of fluffy stuff. I said, stick to the benefits. First off, it's like an $8,000 program. So I told her, if people are going to spend $8,000, no matter how fluffy you make it sound, they still want to see a return on their investment. And that ROI is very important. So when you're spending a lot more money, you have to spend time talking about how much money you're going to make back, even if that's not really the essence of the product. But no one wants to spend money thinking they're not going to get that return on investment back. So you got to touch on that. So I said, write me some copy. So she writes this down. You may absolutely be ready to go forward in your own development so that your joy, success, and skills are far beyond even what they are now. Okay, I don't even know what that means. But first off, you don't ever write go forward on your own. You're supposed to be the mentor. They are not going anywhere on their own. That's the whole point. And then she also wrote, that's because this program offers a quantum leap in your spiritual development, far beyond basic training and your competition, so that you and your clients can soar. What are we, birds? Truly effective long-term coaching, whether life, health, or business coaching, connects the heart and soul of a client and the coach with their gifts and their purpose in life. Now, I like that kind of talk. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. But it doesn't really drive home anything. People will go, yeah, yeah, but they're not going to opt in. They're not going to make a purchase. They're just going to kind of nod their head. Well, that sounds kind of good, but it doesn't convince anybody that they need your niche product or service. And I had told this client ahead of time, I said, focus on benefits. She thought these were the benefits. Spiritual development, quantum leaps, joy, success. Those are benefits kind of inside the heart, so to speak. But it's not really what people sign up for and spend $8,000 to learn how to do. Okay? So I kind of wrote back a gentle email, and I didn't rewrite it for her like I usually do some people. I just said, focus on a few things that really, really matter to that person, especially in a business sense, and what they really want to accomplish, and not the fluff. And I was proud of her. She wrote this back. Look, the point of life is to make a difference and to live lives that matter. It's no coincidence that as we help others reach their meaning and purpose, we find ours. Boom. Some of you are called to be teachers and guides, and that is exactly what the world needs more of. And now I am answering a new calling to found this program that is based on my physical institute. I founded this program, this physical institute she's speaking of, in 1996 and ran it for 19 years. Hundreds of students graduated on to successful careers in healing, and I found it to be very satisfying. Bam. Now, that may still sound slightly fluffy, but it's got a lot of elements in here. And it's really touching the reasons why. And we got to always keep in mind the reasons why someone is doing what they're doing. And it's a very thin line between fluff and benefits, but if you just change the language slightly, it becomes more powerful. Teachers and guides, exactly what the world needs. A new calling to find a program that makes it special sounding, like it came to her in some kind of spiritual. If you want to talk about spiritual things, not that everyone needs to be spiritual, but if it had kind of like a relevance to you to create something to better the world that makes people want to be a part of that. Okay. And she also talks about, and this is the critical part, hundreds of students graduated on to have successful careers, talking about the people who came before them. Now I see that there's intent, and I see that other people have become successful. Now I want to read further. Okay. So really, that the fluff line was so thin and so thinly disguised, you could barely even tell the difference. But this is a little better. Okay. And I didn't write it. She did. And I think she is starting to understand, what benefits really are. Because the thing about benefits, they are magnets. And what is the magnet for your particular target market? And I'll ask everybody that in just a minute. Magnets are what the deepest desires that attract people to your niche products and service. It can be money. It can be health. It can be ego. That's fine. People's aspirations, what dreams they have, returns on investment, career changes. It could be their family. It can be spending more quality time or getting more time to do whatever they want to do. Anything can be a magnet, but you have to decide what is the magnet for my target audience and speak around that. Always keep the magnet, what attracts them to the copy and what makes them go, I have to have this. And dig deep down. It can be a few of these. It can just be one. It doesn't really matter because not all magnets are applicable to every market. Obviously, one of these will work better, but you have to think about it. So for a minute here, go ahead and put in the chat box. There's quite a few of us here tonight. Put in the chat box, what do you believe the magnet is for the target market you're working on right now? And obviously, not all of us have a niche service or product or a niche target. We might have more general audience, but they still have a magnet. So write down in the chat box for me what kind of magnet you think, and I want to see if you can identify that. And I want you to think about that as we get out of here tonight and make sure that you understand that that particular thing, regardless of whether you think it's applicable or not. How does it matter to them? Richard says to get a better job. Okay, great. Good. I like that. So it's career. It's also English can help build confidence in people. If they are in the English speaking world and they don't do a very good job of it, it can be slightly embarrassing. Okay. Katie says career that's fulfilling. There you go. Also, Katie, we talked about second careers and encore careers. A career that fulfilling is actually part of someone's dream. And it can even relate to money and their family. Okay? Because think of the benefits that happen if you have your dream career. Okay? So these magnets, you want to stay very, very dedicated on the few. There's not very many beyond these. Okay? So Joyce says freedom and flexibility. Freedom. That's the one. That's the one I forgot. Good job, Joyce. Freedom. Freedom. I usually put this on here, but I left that one out. That's a huge magnet. In fact, freedom is so fleeting and so unobtainable to the degree that most people would like it, that they never even believe they'll have it. So feeding that magnet about freedom and being able to write copy saying how they can obtain freedom by accomplishing a certain set of circumstances that you can help them with really says, this is the person for me and I want to work with them. So that's very good. Good job out there. Susan says, let's see here. A couple more coming in. Sue says, the magnet for my target market of coaches and gymnasts is to win competitions. However, as a sports psychologist, I ideally want them to pursue and reach their potential, not necessarily winning. Hard to write copy, I believe in. Well, that is kind of a tough situation, but it's not that hard to get over. It's potential is a little bit part of aspirations and also a little bit of ego. People want to be the best they can be, even if they're not in competitions. Or maybe the competition isn't as important as how they feel inside and their personal performances. So there's a lot to this. But your magnet is something that they are attracted to. Don't think of what you're attracted to. Think about what your target market is attracted to. So Richard says, freedom is so general as a benefit that I don't think it gets people to buy the advertiser's product. Well, freedom, let me explain that. When you're talking about freedom as a benefit, it is general, but it's not general when you qualify it to your target market. Okay, when we go back to, say, Katie, for instance, or even Joyce threw freedom as a benefit. Well, Joyce is trying to get people to start their own businesses. Freedom is just a word. And that might be a song lyric, but I don't know. Freedom is a word, but it has a major impact when you qualify it with not using the word freedom, but what freedom really means. Being able to free up your time, being able to free yourself from the shackles of being an employee or some kind of boss. Being your own boss has its own sense of freedom. So freedom, you just don't want to throw that word around all the time, but you got to understand that you have to throw that and qualify it into your target market as a magnet. It is the magnet, but you may not specifically use that word ad nauseum to the point where it sounds, like some political ad. Okay. So, that's important. Freedom to spend time with your family. That's really huge. A lot of people don't understand. Joyce, perfect. Really good on that. Richard says, if your ad convinces me that I need to buy freedom, then I can buy from thousands of people. You're not buying freedom. You're purchasing the ability to move forward, to be able to unlock your own freedom or your own potential. Freedom isn't something that you can purchase. It's what you're purchasing is the idea that you're giving someone the opportunity to break the chains that they're in, and everyone feels like they're in some kind of chains of some sort. They're tied to this, they're tied to that. So when you're using the freedom one, especially in careers, that becomes very important. And people do relate to that word. So there's a lot that goes into that freedom one. Remember, it's not the word, it's the magnet. So always think around the word, okay? And allude to things without even saying it. Allude to, breaking away from careers, spending more time with family. People understand that that's freedom in their mind. But sometimes if you throw that word out there, yeah, it can be a bit of a turnoff. Richard says, I think that freedom should be a secondary, not a primary benefit. Exactly right. So with these magnets, remember, aren't the main words or benefit that you may use. It's the mindset that you go into when you're starting to think of your benefits that you're going to write in your bullet points. So, yeah, I don't want to talk about someone's health. I don't want to call them out. I don't want to tell them they're fat. I don't want to tell them they're unhealthy because they eat, 14 donuts a day. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to turn people off, but everyone's health is on everyone's mind. How do I use that magnet and use copy to bring people in, to keep that magnet going? So always think of that. There's always a money magnet, a career magnet, a health magnet, a family magnet. So you just want to keep that in mind. The opt-in form, very quickly, is very simple. Don't put a lot of thought into it. It's just an opt-in form, okay? But this is, actually your next piece of advice here. So explain exactly what they're going to get. Tell them to get it now, no waiting. Instant gratification, get it instantly. Use those words, please. And here's what Richard was talking about earlier. Just use the email field. I never ask for the first or second names. It brings down conversion. Test it every time. You don't need someone's first name, regardless of how much you want to blow that horn. You don't need it, okay? Because it will stop some people from signing up. Also, no double opting in. We talked about that. And a very simple thank you page. The thank you page that comes up instantly gives them a download link to what you promised. Not a whole lot of stuff, not a big roundabout, no confirmation emails, and no long-winded diatribes. You can put a video on there thanking them and saying, here, let the freebie do its magic. Okay, it's going to help them move forward. Results in advance. Always give a freebie that takes them to the next level without buying anything. And if you have that much faith in your freebie, if you know that will do it, just give them the damn thing. Okay, that's the only thing that should be on there. Okay, so your opt-in form, that's it. Okay, here's some ways to create squeeze pages, because I know you're probably thinking, well, I don't know how to create a squeeze page, but don't overthink it. In the past, there's been all these things that you could buy, like lead pages and optimized press and all these WordPress plugins and all these crazy things. I've used them all, and they all stink. Okay, very few of them either work. They either don't work, or they stop working, or they're too expensive, or you buy something and it's hosted somewhere else, like lead pages, and they go out of business, and all of a sudden all your 50 squeeze pages are gone. And then you've got all these links out there, hundreds and thousands of links linking to the squeeze page, and no longer exists. I mean, you keep control over this thing very simply. And these plugins, I've tried like 19 WordPress plugins, and they all suck. Okay, I don't know why someone can't make a decent plugin, but they just don't work. So try to avoid that kind of stuff, and just simply create a page within your main theme, whatever website you're using. Take a blank page, and in WordPress, with 99% of themes, there's a thing called page attributes or something like that, or page templates. Somewhere on the right-hand side when you're creating your page or writing your content. And there's a drop-down menu, and usually it gives you a choice to make it look like your other pages, or you can choose one column with no sidebars, and that's what I pick. So it widens the whole thing up. The only thing that's left, it's a big open space for you to write whatever you want. There's no sidebar. There's no sidebar opt-in. There's not all that calendars and all that crap you've got in your sidebars on your regular pages. It's just got your header that's repeated on every page. So the header's fine, because you saw on that squeeze page from the expert lady, she had a header. It's okay to have your navigation up there. Don't sweat all that. But it widens it out and gives you a big one column with no sidebars, and you can choose that and just make that one page without sidebars, and all the rest of your pages will stay the same with sidebars or whatever you've designed. And you just put just write your copy, pop your YouTube video on there, and put your opt-in form. It's not that hard. So also, here's another thing though. If you want to get a little bit more advanced, GetResponse and Aweber give you landing pages now. They have their own landing pages that come free with these accounts. So GetResponse landing pages are very cool. And you can create one there. So as long as you're still paying for GetResponse, if you're going to use it for a while, you can create landing pages there. And so don't buy anything, okay? Just stop buying these weird squeeze pages, and don't ask me to, hey, have you ever used this one? Because I'm going to say either no or yes, and it stinks. Okay, I'm just building my squeeze pages right in WordPress, and I'm going to try the GetResponse ones and see what they like. So remember, your website is not enough, okay? This is what we're talking about. It's critical that you have some kind of squeeze, a landing page, an opt-in page, something, or you're wasting your time. You don't want to drive people somewhere where they're opting in or looking around in your homepage or reading a couple articles. Don't distract them. Don't take them away. Send them to a dedicated place that puts them in a dedicated autoresponder series, and where you can send targeted niche product service messages to them through newsletters to them only. And you can send your rest of your list whatever the hell you want, okay? But these people deserve something that you've laser focused all this time. Keep it going all the way to the marketing message. This is actually the most important step in the whole process. So handing out a business card, expecting people to call or pick up the phone, or putting your phone number on the website or a contact form, none of that's going to work. Okay? You have to reach out. You either have to get them into this funnel, or you need to pick up the phone and call these people one by one. Now, if you have a really big product, a really expensive service, and the niche is as elegant as I hope that you've designed it to be, then picking up the phone is a good idea, because you don't want to undercharge for something that very few people are doing. Your niche also means that there isn't that much competition in what you do. Your niche is something that's so uniquely yours, matched with such a unique prospect, that really there isn't a whole lot of other options for this person to take themselves forward to success. So they're willing to pay more for something that specific. Okay? An example is that you can join an internet marketing membership site and learn internet marketing, which is 9,000 topics, for $18 a month. Or I can teach you very specific sales letter writing that will be guaranteed to increase your sales by thousands of dollars. I can ask for a lot more money like that. It's a niche product to a certain group of people. So when you get people on the phone, it's okay to call them. You may have to call them a couple of times, but you can ask $8, $9, and $10 and $15 and $18,000 for stuff. People do it all the time. Clients of mine do it all the time. Friends and acquaintances do it all the time. So don't discount yourself. So just don't send them to the website. Okay. Now for a Q&A. We got a bunch of questions. I'll get to them here in just a second. Next Tuesday, September 29th, I'm going to touch on kind of what we just talked about a minute ago. Setting fees for niche services, products, group coaching, and personal coaching. And we're going to really focus on niche, because I really believe that the tighter the niche, the lower the competition, the easier to find your target prospect, the easier it is to sell them that product, because it's very specific to them and them only, answering a unique set of problems specific to that group of people and that circle of people, which means you can actually raise your prices. So just selling whatever to a whole bunch of different people is like opening up a Walmart. There's only so much you can charge. And then that's the point where you got to start discounting everything, because you got too much competition. But if you're the one with this one particular thing that's very, very specific, and there isn't a whole lot of people doing it, then you can charge a lot more money, especially if you can find a target niche group of people that actually have money. So, for instance, don't try to, let's say your niche is creating a better career. Don't target McDonald's workers to try to get them out of McDonald's and into a more like a corporate career. They don't have any money. So start with the corporate career people and try to get them out of corporate and have them land dream careers or second careers or encore careers or something along those lines. Those people have the money. So also you got to think of your return on investment. And if you can target people that have some income, then you're able to raise the income. We'll talk about all that next week. Okay, really quickly, let me get to some of the questions here. Let's see. Joyce says, Okay, Richard says, I think that freedom should be secondary. Okay, we talked about that. Richard also says, I think primary benefits that are offered should be relatively unique to the advertiser. That's actually a good point, Richard. It really is. Those, there are primary and secondary benefits, and they may sound a little confusing, but really they're not. Your primary benefit, and here's the way I look at it as a copywriter, the primary benefit is not directly spoken or written about. It's the magnet that I hold within my brain as I'm writing other things that revolve around it. So what we're doing is we're leaving breadcrumbs, and we're offering secondary benefits that when accomplished, because secondary benefits might be easier to obtain, obviously freedom, you just can't say, hey, you're going to be free. It doesn't work. Okay. But you can say, make a 5-year plan to move out of the corporate job you're in now and start that business you've always wanted to start. What is that 5-year plan? Does it involve finances? Does it involve family issues? Does it involve a certain mindset? Those mindsets and that money and the savings and working on that are what we call third benefits. And third benefits create the solutions of the secondary benefits. You don't need to explain the primary benefit magnet of freedom. That people will fill that in themselves as a psychological idea. So when you're offering the 5-year or 2-year plan or template to get people away from their corporate jobs and into a career that like a passion career, like going to Africa and opening up an ice cream store or helping poor people, anything like that. People know that means freedom. People will tell themselves that's going to free me from the shackles of my corporate job that I don't like, that I never get to see my family. I'm working 18 hours a day. They'll understand that. But you as a copywriter, you as the advertiser, know that freedom is the magnet and that is the ultimate goal you're trying to get them to reach without mentioning it. So I hope that clears that up. Copywriting is very subtle. And that's kind of why when you use the love conflict formula, it makes it a little bit easier to help you explain. So you don't have to sit and kind of think about this stuff and get kind of flustered and have writer's block. Just use the formula. Think about the things that would make you happy, and think about the other benefits that we use, the passions, the dreams, things like that, and mention that kind of stuff. See yourself in another career. Just say that. It's not bluff. It's real stuff. People want to believe. That's the whole point of this. So, very good. If you have any more questions, pop them in. I'm glad everyone's still here. Oh my goodness, I'm outside of Starbucks. It's actually kind of quiet. I like it. Richard's on a roll tonight. He says, it's very difficult to convince people to a discretionary service without offering very specific benefits. Before the internet, yes. Now there's too much noise. Well, I don't know. Let me think about that. It's convince people to buy a discretionary service without offering very specific benefits. Well, the benefits do have to be somewhat specific, but not the magnet. The magnet's for you, okay? When I put that magnet out, that's something that you are holding in your hand. It's your ace. And that when you understand the magnet, which is why I wanted you to write them down, when you understand the magnet, you start to see the real benefits that you need to write about, these secondary benefits that convince people to buy. And yes, there is a lot of noise out there, but this is why we're trying to get into a more niche product or service. Being too general with lots of too general benefits and a wide brush trying to please everybody is absolutely not going to work. So there's a lot of opportunities. This has worked numerous times. You just have to understand what the magnet is for your particular target niche prospect, and then work around all that, always keeping that in mind. Now, if you're all over the place, okay, for instance, when we talked about that client who'd written the fluff and then she wrote the benefits, she had a grasp of benefits there, and the fluff, she thought she was writing benefits. So her benefits were soaring and spiritual joy and all this stuff. That's not really a benefit. When she started talking about uh, a calling, okay, that's a more specific benefit. Answering a calling, becoming a certain kind of person, like a coach or a consultant. The world needs them, creating an opportunity for them to build a business for themselves. And also the hundreds of students that have succeeded, that alludes to money. So her benefits, her magnet before was this, I'm going to feel better about changing the world, but that's not a very strong benefit. The benefit was, I'm going to create a real career for myself that could be financially successful. So when she started thinking of the dreams magnet and the return on investment magnet, it started to work better for her because it's an expensive program. You can't sell an $8,000 program to just make people feel good about themselves. It really doesn't. You can do that for free. I did that this weekend for free. I wasn't going to pay money to feel good. I could do that by myself. What can you give me that I can actually turn into something tangible? How can I turn my dream into something tangible that can make real money? And will I make the money back that I'm investing? Little things like that. So that's the difference between the benefits and all that. And that is depending on who you're talking to without a wide brush. If you're talking to a very narrow group of people, some spiritual coaches or something, and where they all hanging out at some convention or some kind of LinkedIn group or whatever, then people, they don't want to hear really the same thing they read everywhere. That is the noise, Richard. What you're pinpointing are the magnets. Can I turn my passions and my calling into a career that makes money? Okay. I mean, there's a lot to it. So when she thought about the magnets, it became a little bit more clear to her. So magnets are something you hold within yourself. Okay. When you're writing copy, always think of it as a magnet. It's almost like you're holding it out and you know exactly what will attract people to you using certain language, certain benefits, certain copy. So just think about that, but always be clear about what you're using to attract them with. Okay. So next week will be really good because we'll talk about money, setting fees. I've run the gamut. I've given stuff away and and I don't know. There's all sorts of different fee structures and a lot of people don't know what to charge. A lot of people charge too little, too much. It's very difficult. It's not one of my stronger points. So I'm going to rely a lot on what I've learned from other people and which is always inspiring to me. So if you got a story about, what fee structure worked for you, there's also different plateaus, levels, funnels of fees where you can trickle people in and funnel them to higher price products. That's kind of your regular funnel, but then there's some where you can just, where people don't have a cart button on their site at all. There's nothing. They just pick up the phone, call a couple times, have a conversation with somebody and charge them $15,000. And if the product was that narrow and nichified, that's not a word. And you had that perfect prospect who really needed your service and they had the money to invest or found the money to invest. It's very easy to get that from them. But, without all that in place, it's hard to do it. So we'll talk about all that next week. So anyway, if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to get the hell out of here. And I don't even know where. I'm not really going anywhere. I guess I'll go to the bar or something. There's no football on the night. Tuesdays. That's why I picked Tuesdays, no football. But it doesn't give me much to do after that. So I'll be heading down to Massachusetts on Thursday morning. I'll be going to Worcester or whatever the hell they call it. I can't speak the language down here. And don't write it in the chat box. It's spelled Worcester. So I can't hear it. But anyway, Joyce has got a question. She says, the Shift network is filled with thousands of people who want transformational change and or spiritually focused information. Send your client to the Shift network. Shift network. Never heard of that. I think I might have heard of that, but thanks for reminding me about that. That's very cool. So if any one of you all out there are one of those kinds of people, got that kind of business, the Shift network. Thank you, Joyce. I appreciate that. Joyce and I are working really hard on a really awesome, what we call elegant product. And, I'm very, very excited about what Joyce is putting together. And it means freedom and money to a specific group of people that are really lacking in the ability to believe that they can do it. And it's gorgeous. And we'll just get into that when it's all said and done here in a couple weeks, months, whatever. So anyway, look forward to that. Look forward to the recording tomorrow, and I'll send that out with the PDF. Sue says, pronounce Worcester. I'm trying my hardest. Worcester. Okay, I got you. Thank you. I love how Sue was able to put in the phonetic sounding spelling. That's interesting. I like that. I'm glad she knows. I don't know what's going on up here. I've been up here 6 months and I don't know what's going on. But anyway, or maybe Wooster, Donald says. I don't know. It sounds good to me. I won't mention it while I'm down there, but I'll get someone. I've already asked like 3 people, and I just keep forgetting how to do it, so I can't get it. Sue says no R, and it's Worcester. Now I got 3 different ones. Oh my God. Anyway, I got a show down there next week at some place called Shrewsbury, which I can pronounce. I don't know if y'all know that place, but it ought to be interesting. And then I'm going to a ski resort the weekend after that. So then I'm going to Rhode Island. I'm working my way. I'm going to be in Florida for the winter. I'm going to be, I might stop and see Pat Noel. I don't know. Yeah, I got to see my sister. I got to see my kid for his birthday. All sorts of stuff going on here. But again, I'll be traveling. So, but I'm glad you're here. You know why? Because I'm lonely on the road, and I'm glad you're here every Tuesday night because it makes me feel better because I get lonely out here and I love talking to people. Well, friends, not just anybody. I can talk to anybody at Applebee's, but I want to talk to people that kind of know me and that are here learning. And I hope you're getting something out. I'm actually putting this entire 5-part series on niche. And after New Year's, creating a really massive online class, super duper project that I'll be putting out to all sorts of joint venture partners. I'm going to try to make $1 million off of it because I really think it's everything. I think it's the reason why we have not succeeded to this point in most of our businesses because something out of this 5-part series is missing. And that's not good because if you're not making money, people aren't learning and growing and becoming better people because of your calling. So you want to change that. It is about the money and it is about making the world a better place. It's everything. We can have it all. Okay. That's my point. All right. If no more questions, I'm going to pop out of here and I'll see everybody next Tuesday. Wow. It's 8:18 already. Thanks for sticking around. And it was kind of a long one. So go everybody kiss your family and give your kids a good night kiss and settle down and watch some TV and quit listening to this webinar. All right, I'm out of here. Y'all have a great weekend.